Hare Krishna. So we're ready to begin the seminar that's on the program. This will be about the characters in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We just had Gita Jayanti, right, recently. And we're starting the new year, so you read Bhagavad Gita, we'll start the first chapter, right, from the beginning. So I just want to introduce our speaker for today. If we could get everyone's attention, please. If you want to socialize and all, that's absolutely fine, but we have other rooms. I would just ask if you're going to be in the temple room for the next hour and a half, please be here to listen to the kata. This is a special guest we brought from Alachua, Jagannath Prabhu. He is the son of Mangalananda. Who's heard of Mangalananda? Musician. Any of his songs he's famous for? Anyone know? Is the album? Oh, yeah, it's the song also, right? Lover of the Lord? Okay, you got some fans, yeah. O Govinda, Within My Heart. This is one of his very famous ones. So this is his son. He lives in Alachua. He's involved with some agricultural activities there. Anyone who's been to Alachua, we have a farm community there in Alachua, Florida, just outside of Gainesville. So he's been immersed in Mahabharata for so many years. Now it just flows in his blood. So he asked me, how many days do you want me to be talking about Mahabharata? I said, well, we have to get 50 hours of kirtan in there too. So it's an hour and a half, okay? He said, okay, no problem. I can do that. So he'll recount some of the Mahabharata story and then in the context kind of explain. Many of these characters are mentioned in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita where, some of them are not so well known. So hopefully he'll kind of edify us. So please join me and welcome Jagannath Prabhu.
Hari. Is this good? Okay. Hari Bo. Okay. So I'll start with the invocation for Mahabharata. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatyam vyasam tato jaya udarya. So Mahabharata is what I'm going to be talking about. So Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful. It's like the sun in the Mahabharata. Mahabharata's like a universe. The Bhagavad Gita is like the sun. And it's so important for us to read Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada has really given us benediction by giving us this Bhagavad Gita. So everyone in the whole world, they're reading. The thing is that we should not only, it's not so wise just to focus only on the sun, because there's a whole universe there, which is Mahabharata. But Mahabharata is a very tricky text, because there's a lot of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. It's not all so much pure bhakti. But we in our sampradaya, we have one very great acharya, is Madhvacharya. His disciple of Vyas. So he made one commentary on Mahabharata. It's over 5,000 sloka commentary. So in that, he gives us a clue on how we can read Mahabharata and get the pure understanding. You see, we cannot imagine Krishna. Krishna is a person. He's a real person. We can't imagine him. We can look in the scripture, we can listen to the sadhus and the gurus, and we can have direct experience. But we can't imagine Krishna. So in order to know Krishna, we have to look into these scriptures. And that's what's the important thing. So that is the beauty of Mahabharata. It can show us who Krishna is. By looking into the Mahabharata, we can see Krishna. We can see his devotees. We can see how they interact. And we can get some understanding of what that can mean for our life. So let's talk a little bit about the Bhagavad Gita. In the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's 36 characters that are mentioned. So instead of me just giving maybe 2 minutes to each one, I'm going to tell a story, a series of stories. It's going to include all of these characters, and you're going to get some understanding of how they're all interacting. So let's just get a little context here. The Bhagavad Gita is on the first day. So right before the whole battle started, the sun, before the sun even came up, they got all the armies together. And they got them on the field there. The Kurus, they made their army first. And when the sun started to rise up, the sun started to rise up, they could see, the first thing they saw was all the glittering from the gems on all the battle standards, from all the chariots. And then they could see the gold that was shining. And then they could see the colors. There's so many different standards. Every single chariot of all these warriors, they had flags on them. Beautiful, rich colors. And they saw Bhishma was right there in the front. They saw Drona, they saw Kripa, they saw Ashwatthama. They saw Duryodhana. And when the Pandava army saw this, they were terrified. And they started to shake, even big heroes like Drishtadyumna. Krishna said that Drishtadyumna was like a human tiger. And he saw Bhishma's standard, he started to shake. So Yudhisthira, he wanted to get something together with his men. So he told Arjuna, you make a battle formation that can destroy theirs. So Arjuna, he started, when we get in the state of nervousness, we forget our position. They forgot they had Bhima. And this is why in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Duryodhana, he specifically says, oh, my preceptor, see the formation created by Drishtadyumna, and it's headed by Bhima and Arjuna. So Bhima, they put Bhima on the front. So Arjuna started talking about Bhima. He said, we have Bhima. We'll put him in the front. We just hide behind him. He said, there's not a man on this earth that could fight with Bhima. We put Bhima in the front. We hide behind him. So he'll go through this ocean of Kauravas and make it like a little pond. Because Bhima was so powerful. 10,000 elephant strength. So then they started to make the formation. Bhima was in the front and it's called Vajra, means thunderbolt. So they put Bhima in the front and they put all the other soldiers behind. And then when they saw Bhima, the Kurus army was there, they saw Bhima in the front. So they started to become scared. They said, Bhima, he rips people limb from limb. When Bhima would fight, he'd grab some people by the ankles and stick them in the ground. So then they started to be afraid. So they started making the formations, and Drishtadyumna came forward because he was the Senapati. And he's the general, the head general. They had 7 Akshahinis, and each one had a general. But there was one person they put in charge. That was Drishtadyumna. And Krishna, he wanted him specifically. Because Drishtadyumna, it's a very political situation when you have an army filled with kings. Because everybody's wealthy and powerful, and someone wants to make some favors, so they're going to not really put them in the place they need to be. But Drishtadyumna, he didn't listen to anything. He took nothing from anybody. You're about to hear what kind of person he was. But he wasn't there to impress anybody. He told him straight, you go do this, I don't care if you're king of anything and you want to give me some gold, you go. So they put Drishtadyumna. So he came forward and he met with Duryodhana. They had to hash out the rules. Drishtadyumna came and they started talking about the rules, The person that's on the chariot, they shouldn't fight the person on the ground. The person that's unarmed, they shouldn't be attacked. There's certain non-combatants. This is the way they were fighting to the death. And these were human tigers. They all were, These were vicious people. They were Kshatriya. They have real nature. You cannot find really hardly a Kshatriya in this age. We can imagine, no. These people were very strong and very powerful. And they did their business, but they did it in a very refined and civilized way also. So they had rules. When you're going to fight, you don't fight non-combatants. That's the way it should be. So they met here. Drishtadyumna started giving the rules. And when he was done, this is his character. He didn't care who Duryodhana was. He said, I know that you and your uncle and your whole family is cheaters, and you're going to break all these rules. I don't even know why I'm telling you them. But, if you start to break them, you need to understand that we're virtuous people and we're not going to break them first. But when you start to break them, then we're going to break them too in reciprocation. That's what Drishtajumna told them. So then he rode off. And that made Duryodhana angry, because he doesn't want to be told this kind of thing, because he's the king, He's used to everyone licking his boots. So the next thing that happens is Bhagavad Gita starts, and he goes to Drona, and he says, look at this. He kind of makes a little subtle comment about Dronacharya, because he's pissed off that Drishtajumna was talking bad about him right in his face. So that's a little bit of the context of what led to the Bhagavad Gita. So they were fighting for many days, and I'm going to get into right now. Well, first of all, I think what I'm going to... First of all, what I'm going to do is give you the names of that's listed in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, just so refresh, So the first person mentioned is Sanjaya. And then he talks to Dhritarashtra. And then there's Duryodhana, Drona, Drishtajumna, Bhima, Yajamanyu, or Satyaki. He went by both names. Virat, Drupada, Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraj, Purujit, Kuntiboj, Shaibya, Yajamanyu, Uttamojis, Abhimanyu, all the 5 of Draupadi's children. Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwitthama, Vikarna, Somadati, or that's Borishrava, Jayadratha, and then, when they're blowing the conch shells, Sahadev, Nakula, and Yudhisthira. And then Prabhupada in the purport, he mentions Jayadrat and Shalya. And then also the Shikandi. So these are all the people. So first of all, here's an interesting side note. According to Madhvacharya's commentary, because he gives full information of who all these people are in the big picture of things, So Sanjaya, in his previous life, he was the Gandharva Tumru. He's called a Parama Upadeva. Parama Upadeva is the highest class of Upadeva, which means they're like Deva Gandharva. He was very powerful, and he offended Kuvera. So Kuvera told him, you'll be born as a Sutta. So then he was born as Sanjaya. And then Dhritarashtra was a Gandharva named Dhritarashtra. And the interesting thing about him is he was a direct son of Kashyap, and he was very proud. So because he was a son of Kashyap, he got to travel more places, and he went to Brahmalok. And he went there, and he watched. In Brahmalok, they have Vidyadharas, which are singers. And so he watched them, and Brahma said, are you impressed? And Dhritarashtra, he said, nah, I'm better. He said, you're better than everybody here? And then he said, yeah. And so then Vishishta stepped forward, because he's one of the Saptarishis. Vishishta said, you're a better singer than me. So Dhritarashtra, the Gandharva, he said, of course. He started to laugh. He said, you're a rishi. I'm a Gandharva. We're made to sing. I'm king of music. So then Vashishta started to sing. He was better. So then he got angry. He cursed him. So then he was born on Earth planet. So that's a little bit of a story behind Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra. Okay, so now let's fast forward, and we're going to get to at the end of the 12th day of the battle. By the way, Gita Jayanti was on the 21st, right? So that means it was 10 days ago, or 11, because it's the 1st of January. That means that today would be the 11th day of the Kurukshetra war. So tomorrow would be the 12th day. And the 12th day, see, Dronacharya, he had the plan with Duryodhana that they would capture Yudhisthira. They didn't want to kill Yudhisthira. they were actually afraid of Bhima and Arjuna and all these people. They didn't want to mess with them really. But the thing is, they thought, let's capture Yudhisthira and then make him play dice and send him in the woods again. We don't have to worry about him no more. So that was their plan. We'll capture Yudhisthira. So they got him together, and so the 12th day, there was one king. His name was Bhagavad. He's the king of Pragjyotish. So he was the son of Narakasura. So Narakasura, he had offended the Devas, and he had stolen all kinds of things, including Indra's herd of celestial elephants. So when Krishna killed Narakasura, he took these things back, but he left one elephant with Bhagavad, which was the son. And that was Supratika. So this was a celestial elephant. It was huge. It was so big, like other elephant, it could like step on it. It was monstrous. It was white. It had 4 tusks. And they covered it with, So his idea was, they had a plan. There was the king of the Trigartas, and he challenged Arjuna to a duel. So they had Arjuna distracted. And they would send Bhagavad in and capture. So Arjuna, he killed Bhagavad and he destroyed him. And then Bhima, he humiliated Duryodhana. And Duryodhana he had a big ego. And when his ego was crushed, he couldn't stand it. So he went to Drona, he complained, he said, you were my Senapati, I thought we were going to do something, nothing's happening. And he started chastising him, saying that he was weak, saying he favored the Pandavas, you're an enemy in my own camp, things like this. And so Dronacharya, he didn't want to hear it. It stung his heart. So he said, I promise that if you can distract Arjuna, I will capture Yudhisthira because I will make Chakravyuha. And then we will go, and Arjuna knows how to stop the Chakravyuha, but nobody else does. So we'll make the Chakravyuha and we'll go in there. We'll either capture Yudhisthira or kill a great warrior of the Pandavas. This Chakravyuha it will capture. So they distracted Arjuna and they made a Chakravyuha. They started going for Yudhisthira. So they saw that what was happening and they started to discuss with each other. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? So Abhimanyu, he was the son of Arjuna. He said, I know how to get in the Chakravyuha, but I don't know how to get out. You see, what happened was Arjuna, he married Subhadra, Krishna's sister. And she was pregnant, And when a woman's pregnant, it's very hard to sleep when it's late term. So she was having trouble sleeping. So she said, Arjuna, I want to sleep. So you tell me some military formations. That will make me fall asleep. So he started to talk different military formations. So he got into Chakravyuha. So he told how to get in. But Chakravyuha, you can get in or you can get out. It's with mantra. This is more subtle science. It's not just strategy. You have to say certain mantras to get in the Chakravyuha. And he knew these. And there's other ones for you to leave. These vyuhas, not only is it military formation, there's a lot of mystic stuff involved with these kind of things. So Abhimanyu, he was in the womb. He heard. He remembered. So he said, I know how to get in, but I don't know how to get out. They said, fine, we'll follow you. So you can break in and then we'll wedge the gap and then we'll all be in there and then we can break it apart from the inside. So Abhimanyu went. His charioteer, he warned him. But Abhimanyu, he was only 16. 16 years old. But he's the son of Arjuna. And he's what, quarter Deva? This is his father. Is Arjuna, who has the power of Indra. Indra is no slouch. I mean, he's nothing to Krishna, but I mean, in this universe, who can look at Indra? Other than, he's very powerful Deva. So Arjuna, he had this Shakti. And also, so Abhimanyu, he had a lot of power. He's 16 years old, he's fighting. He's actually younger than the sons of Draupadi by some years, you know. So he started to go. He said, I will make my father proud. So he went in there, and everything was going to go according to plan, but there was one person, is Jayadratha. Now, earlier, he had tried to kidnap Draupadi. And it's a whole story, and we all, unfortunately, don't have as much time as I'd like to get into it. But basically, the short of it is he tried to capture Draupadi, and the Pandavas got her back. And Bhima was very rough with him, to put it lightly. And he brought him with some broken bones in front of Yudhisthira. And Yudhisthira said, you know, he's our relation. Even though he's foolish and he did something bad, he's still our relation because he married Dushala, who was Duryodhana's sister, and so he's like a family member. So we can't kill him. But we have to teach him a lesson. So they gave him a funny haircut. And Bhima took the razor-sharp arrow and he shaved his head except for 5 locks. And they told him that wherever he went, he had to tell them people that he was a slave of Yudhisthira. So he couldn't stomach this. So he did tapasya for Mahadev. And so he was doing this tapasya, and Mahadev came because he pleased him. He said, what is it that you would like? He said, I want to be able to defeat the Pandavas. And Shiva said, you could defeat 4, but not Arjuna. That's how strong Arjuna is. So, unfortunately, Arjuna was somewhere else. So when the Pandavas came to follow Abhimanyu, Jayadratha came right in the way and he stopped. So Abhimanyu was trapped in there, so he was fighting. He knocked off one of Karna's ears. I don't know, many people don't know this, but you read full text, he chopped off one of his ears with his arrow. He killed so many of the Kuru heroes, actually, that came before him. Sons of Karna, sons of the different Dhritarashtra's children, grandchildren, he killed. They would come to him, he'd just knock them dead. He was very powerful. So when he came before them, Karna was very angry because he was humiliated, because he had been mangled. And Shakuni also was humiliated. And so they both came to Duryodhana and they said, we can't fight him man to man. So Karna was like, we got to take him out devious-like. So they went to Dronacharya. And they said, we have to make some strategy we can kill him. Dronacharya said, well, he's undefeatable. So they said, well, do some cheating then. And Dronacharya, he didn't want to, but they pushed and he said, okay. So they conned him into this. So he made some strategy and they all attacked him at once and they destroyed his weapons and then they all surrounded, they killed him. So when they found out about that, so they killed him and it was over with, and I wish I could get more into it, but just a time thing. So, because we got to move forward. So they killed him, and the Pandavas found out about it, and then Arjuna found out about it, and he was so angry that he made a vow: either I will kill Jayadratha tomorrow, or I will enter fire. So the Kauravas, they heard about this, and so they made a huge battle array. So this will let you know how many soldiers there was, okay? The battle array was 60 miles deep and 40 miles wide. That's how big the army was that the Kurus, they put together. And this is on the 14th day of the battle. So after 14 days of massacre, they still had this many soldiers. They could make an army formation this big. Actually, on the 18th day of the battle, there's still over 4 million soldiers left. It says it right in Mahabharata. So we can, debate how big an Akshakahini is till the cow come home, but it's very big. How much soldiers they brought? A lot. So Arjuna, he went through, and then Bhima, he followed him, and they had a big fight. And then, so we're getting to the important part, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about Satyaki and Bharishrava, because they had a particular enmity. You see, Satyaki's grandfather was named Shini, and he was a Yadava. And Bharishrava's father was named Somadat. And they had a quarrel. And Somadat was completely humiliated by Shini. So what he did was, he started doing tapasya, and he got the benediction that his son could humiliate one of the descendants of Shini. So this gives you, I just have to put a little note here that Krishna answers all desires, and it's our responsibility to ask him smart ones. You know, we can ask Krishna for anything in the universe, really, and he's like our father. He wants to give it to us, but it's up to us to have the moral responsibility to ask for intelligent stuff, or devotion, be noble. You know, we can ask for little things all day, but we can ask for how to be a noble person, be a good person. You know, get devotion, get bhakti. These are what we should be asking Krishna for. Not, I got insulted by this person. I want him to be insulted back. But unfortunately, this is the mentality in the world. Oh, he insulted me. So then, Satyaki was there, and he was fighting, and so Bharishrava, he grabbed him, and he started beating him up, and he dragged him by the hair through the battlefield. And Satyaki was delirious, and he grabbed his sword, and he's about to cut Satyaki's head off. And Arjuna, he could sense there was a problem, so he grabbed his bow, and he knocked Bharishrava's arm right off. And so Satyaki, he came to, and Bharishrava turned around, and he said, "Why did you hit me?" And Arjuna said, "Well, Satyaki is my disciple." Hari. He said, "Satyaki is my disciple, so I have to defend him. I don't care really if I break the rules. I have to stand up for my disciple." So Krishna was, of course, driving the chariot. So he said, "Don't worry, Bharishrava. You're about to die. You should be thinking about the next life. I'm standing right here. You just meditate on me." So that's what he did. So he became peaceful because he realized, there's the outward world, and then there's the deeper world. And when the chips are down, that's the real place to go. So he went, and so Krishna, he meditated on Krishna, and Satyaki woke up, and he just cut his head right off while he was meditating on Krishna. So then they were fighting, and so Krishna, it's good. It's good Krishna came. So Arjuna, he was fighting with all the different. Jayadratha was surrounded by warriors, and Arjuna was trying to fight with him, but there was no way he could do it. So Krishna, he's very tricky. He got his Sudarshan. Now, by the way, the Sudarshan's very big. They describe in Mahabharata that it's more like this. It's a very big wheel that he, sometimes it's little. Sudarshan's actually very big. So he took the Sudarshan, and Krishna is very strong, so he can use it. So he took it, he threw, and he covered the sun and made it look like the sun was going down. So everyone thought that, the sun's going down, Arjuna's failed. So they put their weapons down and they're cheering. And Arjuna, he was thought the same thing. And Krishna said, "No, man, I'm covering the sun. It's okay." I'm covering the sun. It's okay. Yeah. So he said, "Shoot him." But the thing is that his father gave him a benediction to protect him. So there's this whole thing, and so he knocked his head off, and he propelled his head all the way to this place where the guy's father was, and it landed on Jayadratha's father's lap. And then when he got up, he was scared, so the head fell on the earth, and then his father's head exploded. So then the Jayadratha was finished. So then they just kept on fighting. And they fought all night. And Ashwatthama was there, and everyone was just fighting. They just kept on fighting. They both armies got soldiers with torches, and they were holding. It's a very dramatic thing, but unfortunately none of the people that I'm talking about are involved in it. There's Gharukacha, but he's not mentioned. He did fight in the first day of the battle. Some people, they don't know that. One time I wrote this thing, and I was saying that Gharukacha fought in the first day of the battle, and then someone said, no, I didn't hear that, and then it's right there in the book. So make sure you read the Shastra before you try and think you know the Shastra. So so Gharukacha had this huge battle, and Karna fought with him, and he used his Indra Shakti, and he killed Gharukacha, and then it got really late, and then soldiers were falling. They fought all day on the 14th day, and then they fought until late at night. And so fighting is some hard work. So they were very tired. So soldiers, they started falling asleep in the middle of swinging their swords. Yeah. So Arjuna, he got on the chariot. He said, "Everybody, take a rest until because the position of the moon, when the moon was waxing, So he said, the moon's going to rise just before sunrise. So we'll wait until the moon comes up, and then we can get up and get ready to fight again." So everyone was jai, because everyone wanted to sleep. But Duryodhana didn't like it, but Drona also allowed it. So the next day, Duryodhana was furious because Gharukacha had been killed, and it really, he wanted to pick up on the momentum of that, but because he was selfish, he didn't care that the soldiers were falling asleep. And Drona mentioned this. He said, "I don't care. We'll kill them in their sleep." So Drona, Duryodhana, he was a very selfish person. So he started really chastising Dronacharya heavily. And he was telling him, you got to fight harder. He's just getting on his case so heavy. So Drona, he went a little crazy. And he started using astras, very powerful astras. See, the thing is, if you have knowledge of an astra, you should only use it on someone that knows, that can fight with it. So if someone else who's versed in the art of using the astras, because these weapons are not really meant for petty squabbles. It's meant for human beings to defend themselves against extra, dimensional beings, asuras or things like that. So these arts are taught to humans so that we can defend ourselves from, asuras and things like that. Or, if another soldier knows how to use, then you can fight with him man to man. But you don't just go kaboom and kill 10 million people over there because you use a Brahmastra, That's not the way it's supposed to be. But unfortunately, Dronacharya didn't really listen to reason or anything like that. He just started blowing people away. And then so different people came to him. And so he killed Kunti Bhoj and Purujit and Drupada and Virat and all these soldiers that came before it, just to Ketu. So he was fighting with these people. So Kunti Bhoja actually was Kunti's foster father. And the thing is that Kunti Bhoj, he couldn't have children. So he got one good Pandit. And he said, why is this? So they said, if you adopt a daughter, then you'll have children. So he adopted Kunti. So he was the foster, that's why they called her Kunti, because he adopted her. And then his son was Purujit. That was the son he got after he adopted Kunti. So Drona, he killed both of them. And Drishtaketu, he actually was the son of Shishupal. And the thing is that after his father died, he actually became good friends with the Pandavas, and he brought a whole Akshahini to fight for the Pandava army. And Drupada and Virat are very important figures. Now, I think we all know a little bit about Virat. The Pandavas, they stayed in his kingdom. And Drupada was a very powerful warrior. And actually, both of them, sometimes Sometimes you come here because it's your choice, and sometimes you come here because it's your you have to. In the case of Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya, they kind of had to, and in the case of Drupada and Virat, they came of their own choice. They were two Gandharvas named Haha and Huhu. Yes, that's their names. They were actually, there's 7 Gandharva kings, and Tumbru, Haha, Huhu. These are some of the names of these Gandharva kings. Actually, if you read the Bhagavatam, Gajendra and the crocodile, they both were Haha and Huhu, the Gandharvas. So they in the Krishna Leela, they chose, okay, we'll come down, and so they came as Drupada and Virat. So Dronacharya, he killed both of them. He killed all these, and Drishtadyumna was furious. And he grabbed his sword, and he jumped right on the running horses of Drona's chariot. He just jumped on, like the cowboy movie. He just jumped right on the horse, and he's jumping from horse to horse to get the sword, and he landed on, he hit Dronacharya, but he didn't kill him. He just hit his armor. And Dronacharya, he got one little arrow, and he hit him in the neck, and Drishtadyumna, he rolled off. So even after all this, and Dronacharya is killing so many soldiers, and so Krishna got everybody together. He said, we have to get together. Okay? So we have to do something about Drona. He's lost his mind, because he's using these astras on soldiers that don't know how to use it. So Bhima, now I have to say something. Bhima and Krishna are very close. Bhima and Krishna are very close. And just by him speaking, Bhima, he got what Krishna wanted. So he went over and he killed the elephant Ashwatthama. Then he went, and Dronacharya is driving around, and Bhima, he just grabbed the yoke of the chariot with one hand and stopped it dead. And he said, Drona, he said, listen, you're a Brahmana, okay? And you are prohibited from fighting. And so you pretty much thrown your soul away for fighting, because you're fighting for the Kurus. And you do this because of money. And you do this because your son, Ashwatthama, you wanted to provide money for him. So you're pretty much selling out your soul so you can have something for your son. But you don't worry now, because Ashwatthama is dead. So you can give this up. So, he didn't say Ashwatthama the elephant, but he didn't lie either. So Dronacharya, he stopped, And then he thought, this Bhima, he's a very intelligent person. And I wouldn't past him that if, in order to save his army, he would do something tricky. So I'll ask Yudhisthira. So then he started going to Yudhisthira, and Krishna came. And he got to Yudhisthira. He said, look, Dronacharya is about to come here, and he's going to ask you if Ashwatthama has been killed, and I want you to tell him that he has. So Yudhisthira didn't want to, because he's Dharmaraj. But you take it from me, okay? If Krishna gives you instruction, he's the root of all religion. So what he says is the right thing to do, okay? If religion personified says do this, that means that's what's right. But still, sometimes people get attached. Oh, is this right? Is this... So Yudhisthira started to hesitate. So now, there's always going to be some debate. Some people say, so he said, Dronacharya came. He said, what's the news of Ashwatthama? So he said, Ashwatthama has been killed. He whispered. He whispered the elephant. Said it inaudibly. Then his wheels touched the ground. Now some people say that it's because he lied. But the other people say that it's because he said the elephant was that he didn't have faith in what Krishna said, so that he broke Dharma because he didn't have faith. And we're about to get into some big talk about faith very soon. So after this happened, Dronacharya, he put down his weapons and he went to Samadhi. So as soon as this happened, Drishtadyumna, wanting revenge for the death of his father, he immediately went up there and grabbed Dronacharya, because Dronacharya had these huge dreadlocks. on his head, Grabbed him by the dreadlocks and cut his head off and swing it around in there and slam dunked it right there on the battlefield. And he jumped down. So as soon as that happened, the whole Kuru army started to run away. They were scared. Dronacharya was the general, and he was the leader, so when he was killed, they didn't know what to do, so they started to run away. And then Ashwatthama was there. Now, I got to talk a little bit about Ashwatthama, because he was the son of a Brahmana, but he was more like a Kshatriya. He was big. They said in 3 ways he was like a bull. They said his shoulders, the way he walked, and how deep his voice was. They said in that way he was like a bull. You ever heard a bull yell? It's very deep. So he was very tough. So Ashwatthama, he found out what happened. And he's this person. His eyes were glowing. He wore red cloth. He was covered with red tilak. And he had one gem in the middle of his forehead. So people didn't want his shadow to touch them. They're scared of him. So here's this person, he comes. And he said, we went to, Duryodhana. He said, what happened? So Duryodhana, he couldn't even look him in the face. He looked on the ground. But Kripa was there. Kripa was his related, because Kripa's sister married Drona, and that was the mother of Ashwatthama. So Duryodhana, he said, Kripa, you tell him. So Kripa said, they told your father that you were dead, so he gave up his weapons and they killed him. So Ashwatthama got furious. So he had some of the Shakti of Rudra. So he started to roar, and the whole battlefield was shaking from his roar. So the Pandavas, they started to hear this, so Arjuna started to lament. And Bhima grabbed him. Because Arjuna started to cry. Arjuna started to say, we're all going to die because we did something bad. Because he was the pet disciple of Drona, And so Bhima, he grabbed him. And he said, little brother, you don't act like a little baby in front of our men, okay? He said, look, you cry over to Drona. You say, he's my father, he's my guru. He said, when Draupadi was being disrobed, he didn't open his mouth. So how is he your father? And when Krishna was being insulted by Shishupal, everybody was losing it. They were telling me he's crazy. Dronacharya didn't open his mouth. He said, what kind of spiritual guidance is that? He's not a guru, okay? He taught you some weapons, that's it. I never seen him as a guru. My guru was Balaram. This is what Bhima told him. He said, man up, okay? So Drishtadyumna, he heard this. So Drishtadyumna started talking about how he didn't like Drona. And so Satyaki started to, get angry at Drishtadyumna. So they started to argue, going back and forth. They're talking some salty words I can't even really say in the temple. They're getting back and forth. They're talking, they're getting angry. And finally Krishna comes and he chilled them all out. Just like how, the moon brings the mellow, So Krishna came, he brought down, he said, look, we can't be fighting each other because the Kurus are about to come and fight us and Ashwatthama's angry, okay? So they got their stuff together, and so Ashwatthama was, he got the soldiers together, He said, look, my father, he gave me one secret special weapon to use in case of utmost emergency. It's called Narayanastra. It's the same potency as Narayan. So I will use this weapon and I will destroy the Pandava army right now. So all the people started to, they were happy. They were cheering. So now this is a version of this story I'm going to tell you is according to Madhvacharya, because it's a little different than what you may have heard if you know this story. But he's our acharya, so I give what he said. So Ashwatthama, he released this weapon. It's like a tsunami of fiery weapons. It's just coming, Ashes are falling down. Everyone was scared. And Krishna said, wait, I know how to counteract this weapon. Everybody needs to take the weapons down take off the armor and lie on the ground. And then they'll be called a non-combatant. The weapon won't hurt them, because this weapon will not hurt non-combatants. So everyone's taking the weapons down. Everybody's taking the armor off. Everyone's doing that with one person. One person he isn't. That's Bhima. Bhima's standing at the head of the army like this, with this club on his shoulder. There's weapons coming. And Arjuna says, hey, Krishna, bring it over there, okay? I need to tell him something. So Arjuna's like, Bhima, take the armor off. Get on the ground. Bhima said, no. Look. He said, look, he drives your chariot, but you still think he's a normal man. He said, here's Krishna. He said, look, I'm not going to do this for several reasons. Okay, first, this is Narayana Astra. It has the same potency as Narayana. So if I get killed by this weapon, then I'm going to get moksha. So what did I worry? Second thing, here's Krishna. He is my friend. He always watches out for me. I have no fear of anything. This weapon won't hurt me. I have full faith in Krishna. And the third thing is, look, there's Duryodhana. And I'll be damned if I'm going to just put the club down and lie like some little baby in front of him. No. So you pick up the club, and he's just standing there. So everyone is doing it. So instead of for the whole army, it's all concentrated just on Bhima. So this weapon is flying with the fire. It's like it's coming down, okay? So Bhima, he's looking. Now I have to tell you something. Bhima had so much faith in Krishna. I have to explain a little something. Before we get to this, when he was a disciple of Drona, he wouldn't take the mantras from Drona. See, because the mantras that Drona gave, they were not Vaishnava mantras. And Bhima, he's Paka Vaishnava. So he wouldn't take. You have to worship different dakinis and do all kinds of tantric rituals to get these weapons. He didn't want to do it. He said no. So but he would still use astras on the battlefield. So Arjuna said, look, you didn't take mantras from Drona, but where do you get these weapons from? You need to do the mantras to get the weapons. He said, oh, look, it's simple. I put the arrow on the bow. I say, Krishna, I need this. Boom. He had faith in Krishna. So this weapon's coming, So his eyebrows, they started to singe. So he just snorted like a bull because he couldn't even believe it. And the weapon disappeared. The weapon just evaporated right in front of him. Because his faith was so strong in Krishna. Because that's the reality. We have some misperception of the world, and it seems so scary. But I tell you right now, I'm just some simple guy. I'm the guy from out of town. You don't know me, but there's nothing on the face of this earth, okay? And I swear and I beg, there's nothing on the face of the earth. We can have so many other solutions. This is the one, okay? There's not a problem on the face of this won't fix, okay? There's not a problem on the face of this earth. I've been through so much. This is the only thing that's going to work. There's there's that. There's so many excuses for not to do this. This is what's going to work. Okay? So the weapon was dissolved. So Duryodhana, he went to Ashwatthama. He said, "Do it again." So I can't do it again. It'll come right at me. So then they got the weapons together, and the army and the fighting's still going on. And so they're going at it. And Ashwatthama, he's so angry because Drishtadyumna had killed his father. So he started fighting with Drishtadyumna, and he stapled him to the side of his chariot with his arrows, He's just wailing on him. Now Drishtadyumna is very strong. He can, he's the incarnation of Agni. So you can't put out a fire with an arrow. So he could take it, but he's just drilling him with arrows. He's filled with hundreds of arrows. And blood's pouring out of his mouth, out of his ears, everything. And then he's just, stuck there, and he's just getting wailed on by Ashwatthama. So Satyaki, everyone else is busy, but Satyaki, and they were just fighting, but he completely forgot the argument. He ran over there, and he was so angry. Because you don't want to mess with Satyaki. Let me tell you, 2 times in the Bhagavad Gita they call him indestructible. If you read Krishna book, when Krishna is fighting with Banasura, it's Satyaki that's going face to face with Banasura. And then Krishna, he's fighting with Shiva. And then finally they switch. But for the longest time, it's Satyaki, he's fighting with Banasura. Banasura with 500 bows. And Satyaki with 1 bow. Banasura is the direct descendant of Hiranyakashipu. And he's this powerful Asura, and Satyaki is going toe-to-toe. So he's a great hero. So Satyaki, he got inflamed. So he started shooting all these arrows and he scared Ashwatthama away. So he picked up... sometimes maybe we have some disagreement. But if somebody's a devotee, we should stuff happens, but we should work together as a group, man. We should chant. We're all devotees. We chant Hare Krishna together, man. It's one big family. And sometimes a little fight, but we shouldn't lose track of what's important. So Satyaki took him, and Ashwatthama, he went, and so he started fighting with Krishna and Arjuna. So he got this weapon, Agni Astra. It was a super-powered one, and everything is burning up. And Arjuna shoots another weapon, and there's all this fire everywhere. And Ashwatthama, he looks through the fire, and there's the chariot of Krishna, Arjuna, and in front of the chariot is Mahadev. He's standing with the trident. And he saw Shiva, and standing in front of the chariot, he got freaked out, and he ran away. And when he's running away, he met Vyas, and he said, during the fire, I saw Shiva standing in front of the chariot. Why is that? So Vyas, because he's very wise, they were in Kurukshetra. It's not such a, there's so many sages, they live in the Kurukshetra. So he ran into Vyas. Vyas said that Shiva, he's protecting the chariot because he loves Krishna, so he's giving protection to the chariot. So all those weapons that you're firing, Shiva, he's stopping. So then the battle continued, and Karna went away. And actually, Uttamojas and Yajamanyu, they ended up living to the very end. They were killed by Ashwatthama at the very, very end. Ashwatthama came and did this night battle. Yajamanyu and Uttamojas are actually the wheel guard. They're other sons of Drupada. And they were the wheel guards for Arjuna. So whenever Arjuna was fighting, there was Yajamanyu on one side and Uttamojas on the other. And so they would always protect him. Because when you're in the fight, you need guys on your side. You need a wingman. So you can go out and fight, so you got the other guys. And that was what Yajamanyu and Uttamojas, this was their job. So these literatures are so beautiful that we have. We have so much, We have the Mahabharata. We have all of Prabhupada's books where we have this perfect Siddhanta that's given to us so that we can have so much understanding of philosophy and get so much knowledge. And then we have so much beautiful literature. And so I please everybody read these books. Read Prabhupada's books, read Mahabharata, read Ramayana. It's all there. It's all available. It's all there for us. It's this beautiful ocean of nectar that we can get pure ananda from. Just be filled with so much ananda just reading these scriptures. And that's the thing, the Krishna consciousness should be joyfully performed. So we have so much ananda in these scriptures, from reading. So that's the most important thing. If there's something to take away from this, don't just get a little bite size. There's so much to go deep. Don't just stick your foot in the pond. Just dive in. I love reading the Shastra, and maybe it's because I can get a taste, but it's like it's available for everybody. It's just nectar, so everybody can dive in. Anyway, so so we got okay. So, well, I guess I guess I kind of came to my conclusion. I guess, Srila Prabhupada, I just wanted to say that I feel so indebted to Srila Prabhupada and for giving us this Bhagavad Gita and giving us ISKCON and giving us this beautiful thing where we can get devotee association, see beautiful deities. Devotees are such wonderful people, and we get to, when you go, everyone sitting here is a wonderful person, whether you know it or not, You all are. It's true. And the thing is that it's so rare. Out of billions of people in the world, only few people know about. So we should value everybody that's sitting. So the thing is that if there's any questions or comments or anything like that, please, Haribo. Oh, yeah, sure. Kind of a long story, but the thing is that my father was, we always had Krishna in the home, but I didn't really have so much of this. We didn't have many books. I wasn't so fortunate to have so much involvement when I was smaller. So my father kind of wasn't around so much at the time. So finally, when I was like 18 or something, I said, please get me a Mahabharata. I always wanted to read. So when I was 18, I got a Mahabharata. I was this little one by Krishna Dharma, maybe like 300 pages. I read it in one day. And so after that, he got me the bigger one, the 1,000-page one. So I just started, would read one chapter, and he would go to work, and then he'd come home, and I told him what I had read. And so then the next day, I started getting into telling the story. And then, about that time, shortly after, I ended up moving to New Vrindavan, and I stayed there for about 5 years. And I was telling all the devotees Mahabharata, and then Radhanath Swami, he came through, and he heard, so he asked me so he would give darshan sometimes. And so he'd have me sit there right next to him, and he'd say, tell Mahabharata. So he encouraged me, you need the sadhus, you can't really do it on your own entirely. The sadhus, they encourage, That's the beauty part, is the sadhus. So you see, he would sit there and he would encourage me to tell the stories. And so, I don't know, it's always had a nectar to me. I can always, whenever I read it, I can see it right in front of my eyes. So it's not so, I'm sorry, I can see the whole, whatever is happening, I can see in front of my eyes, So it's not such a thing that it's not so far away or abstract. Because Krishna is a person. He's a real person. And he's not some imagination. And I guess I always kind of knew that. And so when I read the story, it comes right in my eyes. So I can experience it. And so when I tell the stories, I just kind of replay what I see and describe what I'm seeing in front of my eyes. And then I just discovered, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, I discovered the nectar of chanting a lot. Like a lot. Like, I found, it was an interesting circumstance how it happened, but one time I just said, okay, for a month I'm going to chant from midnight until 6 a.m. I was in India at the time, so I had a little, it's easier, I suppose. There's not so much Rajagun or whatever, it's more Sattvic place. So and then I just found that, I started chanting a lot, and then there's just so much more ananda, That's what I'm saying, there's so much ananda with the chanting if you chant good. We're all very busy, and if you have the time to get the nectar, then it's there. We're all different people too, I mean, for me, chanting is very much nectar and the stories, but we all have different service. It's like Madhvacharya explained in one point that, there's a cup, there's a tank, there's an ocean. They all hold the water. And they all have, some people is more like a cup, and some people is like an ocean. And so we all have our own job to do. We all have our own service, and we all have our own relationship individually. What works for some people doesn't work for everybody, but I definitely have found that the chanting is very good. So is there any other questions? Yeah, Haribol. Now, see, this is an important thing. Now, if I remember correctly, in Prabhupada's books, it was something, he said something along the lines of over, I don't want to say the wrong number, but I know it was at least over 200 million. And now other devotees have since said that it's less, but that doesn't really it makes more sense based on what I've read, that it was in the high hundreds of millions, just based on the size of the armies and how many soldiers they talk about. And sometimes they'll say, hundreds of millions of soldiers, right from the book, So, in certain places it'll say that Akshahini is only so big, but I've also read the Downer Veda, and it will say that an Akshahini can be this big, or it can be more or more. You know what I mean? And I'll give you an example. When Parshuram, in the Brahmanda Purana, when Parshuram was fighting with Kartavirya, Kartavirya assembled all the Kshatriyas on the earth, and so there was, I think, 6 billion soldiers, which is about the same as the current population of humans on the earth. So it took him many weeks. Yeah. Well, the thing is like this. For me personally, I've found that I'm certain there's work that can be done, and we don't all know. You can always say that we don't know everything, but for me personally, it doesn't really matter as much, because my experience of Krishna is too vivid to let speculation get in the way of it, if that makes sense. That's kind of might sound sentimental, and it's good if people study that kind of stuff, and I would encourage anybody along those lines. But my experience of Krishna is too vivid for me to have any doubts about what's in the scripture. Maybe certain things are different than we can comprehend with our material senses. You know what I mean? I can't really give us, we can't always mix the spiritual and the material. It doesn't always work in the same light, but you can't stop experience. Because if you try and make experience dead, then you're killing yourself. You know what I mean? So that we can't cover up. If that's a sufficient answer. Yeah. I've read. So I would suggest, if you want to get it good, there's I read the Ganguly translation, which is for free on the internet at sacredtext.com. You can just grab it and get it. And it's the full, complete translation of it's a little antiquated. It's all thee and thou, and you feel you're reading the Old Testament or something, but it's there. And then I read the M.N. Dutt translation, which is the direct Sanskrit to English. So there's a sloka and then there's a translation. And that one it's like 16 volumes or something. Mahabharat's very big. Yeah. I've read, he quotes the Madhvacharya commentary occasionally. And that I would suggest, it's very hard to find because the Madhvacharya's followers are very kind of secretive. But they're like devotees. I lived in India for a couple years, and I actually lived down the street from one of their temples. And so I would visit them because they're Vaishnavas and they're good people. And they were very friendly. They would say, oh, you're our nephew, because they see the ISKCON as their nephew. And so they're happy people. They like to share. And he has a very solid commentary. You can find, if you really search, he has a full explanation of Mahabharata in that. And that's also very important to read, to get some understanding. Okay, any other? Haribol. Okay, so he was asking about breaking of regulative principles, and then in the Pandavas, using them as an example, and then how Krishna was still with them, and so how do we take from that? Is that what is basically what? So that's a very interesting question, and there's a couple of ways to look at this, because there's many different levels, and one thing you have to understand is at the time, this day and age, what we are is Malecha and Sudra, and that's pretty much it. And if anybody says they're a different Varna, then they're lying through their teeth, okay? Very rare, okay? Maybe you go in the deep heart of somewhere, you find one Brahmin or one Kshatriya or something like that. But very rare, okay? And they can be known by their actions, not their self. So at that time they followed Varnashram, okay? And so it's a very, very detailed thing. Every single Varna has certain things that are allowed to it and certain things that are not allowed to. They have certain obligations and rules that they're supposed to follow, and they also have certain privileges that come along with those rules. Okay? And this is just in the Varnashram system. Now, you have to look at this as take a double take, because we're also dealing with what we're doing right now is trying to develop bhakti for Krishna. And so we're following the rules and regulations so that we can do that. The Pandavas were living in a Varnashram system society. So they followed the rules and regulations for that. One of the obligations of a Kshatriya is that they're supposed to not turn down a challenge, okay? They're supposed to be able to put their life on the line any second. Part of that is that if someone challenges you in any way, you're supposed to respond. So when you get challenged to a game of dice, you have to say yes. So Yudhisthira also, if you notice the example, he was more concerned with rules and regulations than what Krishna wanted exactly. So he was following strictly his Kshatriya dharmas. So Kshatriyas, Yudhisthira had several wives. I would not suggest you do that in this day and age. He had 3 wives, I believe. So, we cannot do that in this day and age because Kali Yuga is very intense and it's got all this, it's insane in these days. So, Yudhisthira was following, it can get a little bit confusing. The major takeaway I want everyone to have is that we should be able to approach Krishna no matter who and what we are. We should try at least to approach Krishna. It doesn't matter what your Varna or what your Dharma. You should try and approach Krishna, even if you have some problems. I mean, we all do. If we're honest, we have so many problems, okay? I mean, it's true. We have so many faults, and we know them better than anybody else, really. And the thing is, if we want to put it under the rug or we want to address it. And that's where the real mettle of somebody is, okay? It's one thing to know and to say, whatever. It's one thing to say, okay, I know I have a problem, I want to face it, and I want to change it. So, was that a good answer? Okay. Yeah, that's true. They would hunt to see, if you're going to be a killer, you have to be able to kill. So Kshatriyas used to, even in this day and age, they suggest that if you are a warrior, that you desensitize yourself to violence. Because, like, it's an interesting fact, so that you know a little bit about Kshatriyas and what's not. Even in the military today itself, only maybe less than 20% will actually shoot, aim down, and fire on someone. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. We'll shoot, aim down, and fire at a human target. The rest, they just go boom. They don't have even trained military person. They don't have the gusto to just gun somebody down. Okay, if you're going to be a fighter, like one of these Kshatriyas, we shouldn't get illusion in our mind that they're all peace and love, happy. No, these Kshatriyas. Everyone on that battlefield, Bhima, Arjuna, they were real heroes. They would wear tiger teeth. I don't know if you've ever worn tiger teeth. I wore one for one day. You feel like Superman. It's got so much potency. They would wear whole necklaces filled with these tiger's teeth, and wear tiger skins, and just like fight and just like go crazy. They were real Kshatriyas. And that was their place in society, and that was what they did. So they were supposed to be able to kill someone without even second thought. So you have to train yourself to get into that mode of consciousness. So they would shoot, and they would be in that place. Now I know. Now in Madhva's commentary, you see, Kshatriyas are allowed by Varnashram Dharma to eat meat, but that doesn't mean they have to. And not all the Kshatriyas would eat meat. And according to Madhva, the Pandavas, they wouldn't. That's what I heard. But it also says in Mahabharata that Krishna told him that he would live for a few thousand more years on the earth, and then he would go. So it's been quite a few thousand years since the Kurukshetra. So I don't know if that's true or not. But this is what they say. And if it's true, if I meet Ashwatthama, I'll let you know. Oh, okay, I'll tell you. He wanted to know why was Duryodhana so evil. And sometimes people, like I said, there's many levels to the Mahabharata. And what we have to understand is that Duryodhana, he was not human. He was actually an incarnation of Kali. Kali, not Kali Ma, but Kali, the mean guy. The sin personified was Duryodhana. And so, this Asura mentality is very selfish and cruel. And so that's why he acted that way, because he personified that evil. It's like evil personified. Hari Hari. Oh. Oh, who? Oh, okay. Oh, anybody? Oh, he was Kali. He's an incarnation of Kali. So he was Kali, and then he took birth on the earth. See, the Asuras, they had been defeated in battle by Indra, because the Asuras and the Devas, they're always at war. They're trying to conquer the earth, and so they got together and they realized that when we come here, we get killed. If we come and we say like Hiranyakashipu, or we come and we're like Ravana or somebody like that, and we stick our foot down and we say, okay, I'm a demon and I'm going to conquer the earth, Vishnu or Indra or somebody's going to come and kill us, okay? So what they said is, this time we'd be sneaky. So this time we're going to come in the human form and make our kingdom. And then they still got beaten because Mother Earth, she tattled on them. And she went to Brahma and she informed all the devas that, these demons, they're doing funny business on the earth planet. So then Krishna said, well, if they're going to, come as human beings, and okay, all you devas, you come too. And so then they had the great Mahabharata, and that's the real Mahabharata, is that the devas and the asuras are battling. That's another level of seeing the story. This is not just some, kings fighting each other. Okay. Oh, Krishna, Hari Hari. Oh, that's that. No. Well, the thing is that he did crack open Dushasan's chest and stick his lips on his heart. But the thing is that he actually didn't drink his blood. He just did that to freak everybody out that was around him. Later on, if you read the story, later on he says that I didn't act, because Gandhari was so angry because he had done that she was going to, try and curse him. He said, I actually didn't drink his blood. I just looked like I did so that everyone would freak out. Okay, Haribol? Oh, no. That's the time's wrong on that. Yeah. No, the time is wrong. I don't know. Yeah, that's Bhishma. Bhishma means terrible vow. So I think the name Bhishma Panchaka. I'm not a pure devotee, coming here to tell you some divine secret, but the timing's off on that. So, Bhishma means terrible vow, and so the 5 days you do terrible vows. You're supposed to do tapasya for those 5 days. So, it makes sense the name would be Bhishma. Yeah. Because the time is off. Because actually, I don't know if you know the day, Makar Sankranti? That's the day that Bhishma left. No, that's during that time frame. He spoke for many days to Yudhisthira. The Shanti Parva and the Anayushana Parva combined is like 3 times the size of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. That's where Bhishma speaks the instructions. So the Mahabharata is very big. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, maybe it's a little mundane example, but okay. If you were to take the whole Lord of the Rings series and The Hobbit and put it together, it'd be the size only of the Battle of Kurukshetra. The whole Mahabharata is 1.9 million words. And the average novel is like 20,000, 30,000. So Mahabharata is very huge. Haribol. Okay, so the question is, if Gandhari was such a chaste woman, why was an evil son born to her? That's an actually good question. And I need to look and see if there's another reason. But I know that if you look at the birth itself, it is very bizarre and strange kind of birth that for all the Kurus, And you also have to look at something, is that when she was pregnant, she got jealous because Kunti was pregnant. And as soon as she found out that Yudhisthira was born, she hit her stomach. And then the ball of flesh came out. So this jealousy came into she might have been chaste, but she also was jealous. So, that can also coexist because, you know what I mean? So she found out that Yudhisthira was born, so she got jealous and she hit her stomach, and then the ball of flesh came, and then she had very jealous sons. So that does make sense. Haribol. I don't know. One and then another. Okay. Oh yeah, and all the eggs and. I'm aware of the story, but for my own self, I haven't seen actually in the actual book, and this is. I'm not saying that you're wrong. But what I'm saying is that I for the purposes I like to make. There's a lot of village stories, okay, and it's a very big thing. There's many village stories. Like I'll tell you one story that's not in Mahabharata. Some people think that. Oh, sorry. Go on. No. I know what you're saying is exactly right, because the material world is a temporary place. He brought a very good point. Everyone should follow their nature. Asura is going to have the Asura nature, but even Krishna is so merciful that if you paka a demon, he's going to smash your head in and you're going to get moksha. So everybody should follow their nature. And if you have nature of Asura, really you should not be around devotees. You know? You shouldn't pretend. If you're Asura, a demon, this is the wrong place to be because you're pretending, you know? You should not be here. But if you want to be bhakta, then be here. Yeah, he was... Oh, okay. There's two things that I can get from this. But, this is just my observation. I have to say that. This isn't like I read in the book. But this is a personal observation. He was asking why, if Duryodhana was bad, why was he Balaram's favorite disciple? Two things. Okay. One thing is, unless I'm mistaken, Baladev is Adi Guru, no? Okay. So that means that he's most merciful. So he will try and give mercy even the most fallen, including demon like Asura, like Duryodhana. Second thing is, if you read his Shastra, what I noticed is many times who's the best at doing tapasya is the Asuras. The best. They beat anybody else is the demon. Okay? Because they have very specific goal in mind. And it's a selfish goal. So, Duryodhana can be a pet disciple of Baladev and be the best at learning how to fight with a club. And so Baladev can be happy with that Duryodhana is learning the club. But Duryodhana can still have an ulterior motive to be a bad person and try and get benedictions from Baladev. And Baladev is very merciful, so he'll try and be kind to him. Krishna will be kind to everybody. It's his nature. I mean, that's his nature. It's up to us to be mature enough to try and get the right kind of thing. You know what I mean? His nature is he'll give. So many people, I mean, look, if you want to look at things, in the outside world, there's so many millionaires, they're not really good people. Krishna is still giving them. It isn't based on necessarily how good they are in a certain sense. They did certain karma. It's not a relationship of devotion. And it's really important for us to see the difference between matter and spirit. You know what I mean? Because you could say that Krishna is benedicting some millionaire. And he is, because the guy did some karma. But at the same time, he isn't necessarily giving him the same kind of benediction as he might a devotee. But that devotee is more dear to him. But I mean, if that's was that sufficient? Okay. Oh, is it time up? Oh, I'm sorry. One last one? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So there's a village, I tell Mahabharata stories, and I run into so many things, I also put on the internet sometimes. I have some stories on the YouTube and stuff like that. And I have a Mahabharata group on Facebook and this. And one story that is absolutely not in Mahabharata is Karna. There's this idea that Karna is a hero, and he's not. Karna, it's this idea that when Arjuna was going to kill Karna, he couldn't fight him. And so Krishna had to come in disguise as a brahmana or something and come to him and ask him some charity. And then that allowed... I don't know. This is a story I've heard. many times from different people, and it's a complete village story. This is not in the Shastra anywhere. Basically what happens is Karna's wheel is stuck, and Arjuna is going to shoot him, but he doesn't want to, and he hesitates, and Krishna says, "What?" And Karna says, I call on, religious principles, don't fire on me. And Krishna says, "You call on religion? You're a rascal." He says, you've broken religion so many times. He said, "Where was religion when you called Draupadi a prostitute and said she should be stripped naked? Where was religion when you surrounded and killed Abhimanyu? Where was religion when you conspired with Duryodhana to have the Pandavas burned alive?" He said, "Sinful people like you should never call on religion. You defame religion by even saying the word." So this is Karna. This is what Krishna felt about Karna. So sometimes people think Karna is some superhero or charitable person. Maybe, but Krishna didn't really like the way he acted. Hari Hari. Hari Bol.